Welcome to the Base Coat Brainiac podcast. My name is Austin Hauser. I am Chief Brainiac over here at Base Coat Marketing. If you own a painting business and you're listening in today, you are in the right place. So today we have an industry titan, a man who claims that running a painting business should not be a full-time job. He is an owner of a painting empire consisting of 7 independent locations and painting business pros, Eric Barstow. Eric, thanks for being here today, man.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to be here with you. Excited to provide any value I can to the people listening now or in the future. So, yeah, thanks.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Love it. So, Eric, you've been around a while. Your media is all over the internet. So you obviously know what you're doing, and you run a coaching program for painters. You walk the walk, you talk the talk. Let's start with you, though. Give us a backstory, man. Where did you come from? How did you get here today?
Well, I've been in this business for 17 years. I've been coaching people through Painting Business Pro for a decade. I've been building, starting, failing, in my own businesses for the last 13 years. So there's a long history there. So I don't want to talk too much about me, just so we can spend more time providing value to everybody else. But one thing would be, I appreciate the nice words. I think we're working on building an empire, but we're still kind of getting started there. And then, if I go all the way back, dude, just for history, I started like a lot, like there's quite a few people in this industry at this point who've started this way. I mean, I know, Breakthrough Academy, those guys were all through College Pro up in Canada. Like I worked with College Works Painting in college for 6 years. So I coached 100 college students in that program and ran $2.5 million worth of business over 5 years as a coach. So I interviewed 3,000 people and oversaw tons of painting every year. And that's what I learned. That's where I learned the business. And so I started my company in 2011. That was after I got out of school, after I left that business. And I started a painting company with no intentions of building a painting company. I just didn't want to get a real job. I knew I could make like 50, 70K a year, hardly doing anything because I knew how to do it. The student painting model was really amazing for like a learning, model and training college students to do business and stuff, but horribly inefficient from a, business perspective. I mean, the amount of volume you have to do and you're training kids with no experience in painting or business, how to sell, tons of paint jobs and hire people, manage projects. And it was crazy, what we did in those days. And there's a reason those companies are almost out of business now or doing other things. But that's why I started my painting company, man. And that's exactly what I did. I made good money. It paid all my bills while I pursued other entrepreneurial endeavors for a couple of years. I did 6 or 7 different things. Some were successful in making money, but I didn't like. Some were epic failures, and some were somewhere in between. Some never got off the ground. And so I just tried a bunch of things. And over those couple of years, the painting company doubled again. And I remember the 3rd year or so, we were doing about 650K. I was making about $100,000 a year. I was working 5 to 10 hours a week. And that's not an exaggeration at all. That's what my schedule was. And I remember that summer, and there's a 2-week stretch in August where I golfed 13 out of 14 days. And, life was good, man. I had worked my ass off for a lot of years. And so it was nice. And I remember driving down my street right by my house where I still live today. And I was like, what am I doing, man? Like, I'm looking for all these home runs, these overnight successes. And I'm running this business that's doubling every year in an industry I know really well, that's paying all my bills, and I'm not putting any effort into it. If I had just worked like 15 hours a week, I would have been more fulfilled. Because to be honest, like, I don't think not working is really the goal. I think there's an ideal work amount. That's the goal. And I don't think it's 40 hours either. Not for me, at least. It's probably like a 20-hour work week is probably what I'm working towards ultimately. And so anyways, I had that epiphany. I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to go all in on the painting business. And that's when I started Painting Business Pro. That's when we started looking at what are we going to do with more locations for my painting business. I brought on a partner with my current company and said, hey, your job's to run the whole thing now, and you're going to have some ownership in it. And he has grown it since. So, Foothills is about a $7 million a year business now. And Ben has built that. And I've just worked with him. And then, the next, I guess that was 2013 till now. It's been crazy, man. I mean, we've gone through, I'm not going to walk you through the whole 10 years, but we've started or acquired 20 some painting companies. We've sold a handful. We've closed a handful. We operate 7 now. I could spend the whole day today talking to you about failures and lessons learned. I've coached thousands of painting contractors through Painting Business Pro. That was also something I had no intentions of becoming a real thing. I just want to learn how to do business online. And that I'm like, yeah, maybe someday we'll sell a couple $1,000s a month, but I'll learn. And then, I started making YouTube videos, and all of a sudden we were doing like 10,000 in sales a month. And then, the more I did, the more I'm like, this is real. And now it's obviously become a real big operation, with hundreds of members. And just 2 years ago, Austin, I contemplated for 3 months closing Painting Business Pro, because I had gotten to a point where I feel like I had fulfilled my intentions for starting it. I wanted to get people freedom. We were doing that. We had a lot of members building companies that were making good money and had all the freedom in the world to spend with their family, which is like my passion. That's why I got into business, was family.
Sure.
And provide a great life for my family. And we were doing that, but I wasn't really, and I learned business online. Like, I learned how to do all that stuff. So, I just had to look at myself and say, well, this future's been fulfilled. I either need to create a new compelling future for this business, or I'm going to get out of it and just go all in on what we're building over at, National Painting Group with our portfolio companies. So I'm really passionate about, what we're doing there. And after 3 months, I just felt like I couldn't close it down, because I didn't think anyone was going to do things the way, exactly what I was doing, in the way I was doing it for the people that, we've impacted. And I say that with some qualifiers, like in the way I was doing it, because I think there's some really extraordinary people in this business that are doing some really amazing things that I have a whole lot of respect for, and really admire. So it's not that there's not some really extraordinary people doing things that I haven't even connected with, because I've kind of been like in my lane, head down, doing my thing, but I really look forward to the day that we connect. But anyways, man, I could keep going, but
I love it.
Wrap it up there.
No, so I think a few things that stuck out to me, and one point that I mentioned earlier that you brought up here again, and I want to really drill on, is the fact that you're an entrepreneur, doubling a business every year, and you're working less than 40 hours a week. I think anybody listening to this right now is asking themselves the same question in their head: is how can I work less than 100 hours a week? Where do you start, man? And I know you have a process, you have coaching programs in place, but if I'm a business owner, let's say I own a painting business today, I understand there's different skill sets, different mindsets you need to have at different phases of your business. But where do you start? How do you get to that point of not working 40 hours a week?
Well, yeah. And so there's so many directions I could go on this, because this is really what I'm passionate about. I think
Let's do it.
For the last decade, it's very rare that I've had over 30 hours a week into my painting companies. And then also there's obviously Painting Business Pro. And for a while there, I was running a marketing company too. And these days, average week's probably 28 hours right now. So working towards 20. I want a little more time to take a random day off. My daughter wanted to stay home from school today. I'd love to have been able to do that with her. So that's what I want to give to people, because I know how to do it. And that's, I think, why everybody gets into business. I get into business because I want to create freedom. I've asked thousands of people that over the years, why'd you start a business? And it all boils down to freedom. And then I say, well, what would you do with that freedom if you had it? And, tons of different answers come then, but it's really about freedom. And the only way you create freedom with your business ultimately is you're going to need to have a team. And so we got to work backwards from there. And so I'll answer a question from two different directions, because it's not as simple as like just building a business. There's a ton of people who have built a successful business, but they don't design their life now. Right. So if I say, why do you want to start a business? And you say, for freedom. And I say, what would you do with that freedom? And you tell me what you do with it. I'd say that's your designed life. That's the life you would design for yourself if you had freedom to design your life. But most people who do become a successful business owner still don't have that experience. It's like building a successful business doesn't guarantee freedom. In a lot of ways, you just got that much more accountability, that much more responsibility, that many more problems and fires to put out, that many more failures to deal with. So there's got to actually be two different things that we consider here. And it's one aspect for sure is the successful business, but that alone won't do it. And you actually don't need that part to have a designed life, because the only way that you really live a designed life is by taking the time to design your life. And you can do that on day one. And that's what we do with a lot of our members right away. And it instantly just cut back their work schedule and increase their results like immediately. So which way should we start? Should we start with the business?
You know what? I actually like to start with the mindset aspect of that, is because in my opinion, anybody can create a successful business if you have the right mindset, right? The skills, the processes, the operations, that all is more or less secondary. So let's start there, and then let's transition over to the business side of that.
Okay. So, can you clarify a little bit what you mean by mindset and where you want to go with that because I know
So
you know a lot of the listeners and stuff. So
you talked about asking what their goal of opening up a business is, right? And most often it's going to be freedom. What we're looking for there is, what's your why? Why are you getting out of bed every day? What do you want to do in your business? And then ultimately, how do you scale that? People will come to you with a reason they want to get into business and what their end result is, but don't necessarily know how to get from point A to point B. So I guess that's really where, after they answer that question, they say, I want freedom, whether that is freedom of time, freedom of finances, right?
Yeah.
How do you start that process of guiding them to get from point A to point B?
All right. So I think it's important to understand what the end goal is for people to be able to do that. And so I know a lot of your customers and your clients are in the, $500,000 to multi-million-dollar range. And that's going to be kind of the goal we want to get to. So for me to have real freedom in my business, I've got to have a team that does the day-to-day for me. I need someone who's office admin handling that, someone who's doing the estimates, someone who's managing the projects. If I don't have someone doing those, then I've got to be doing those. And I might be making a really great income and have a good business, but I still got to show up for that thing to happen. And so ultimately we're going to need to build a team. And that's what I call phase 2. Like, that's the real goal of the business, is to build a team that runs the day-to-day, so that your job becomes, I got to support this team of people, and I got to make sure there's throughput. I got to make sure marketing's there. And that's where Austin comes in, right? So it's like, I got Austin, and I maybe got a couple other people helping me with the marketing. And then my job is to make sure these 5 people or whatever are successful in their roles handling the business.
Okay, so let's pause there for a moment, because I think the team is so damn important. And we have a team of 25 here at Base Coat Marketing. I would not give up a single one of them. We have built an A-player rock star list of our team here. But where do you start? So I know every phase of a painting business is probably going to hire different people, but in general, is there a framework that you recommend following as to what positions or what people you should hire first?
Absolutely. We always recommend hiring a project manager first. So if you think about the intention of hiring a person, it's ultimately to buy back your time, to free up your time so that you can reallocate that time into the more valuable things in your business. And so when you're in phase 1, where you're doing it all, you've got about half your time on production management and about half your time on estimating and sales, and then a little bit on marketing and admin. And so if we hire marketing and admin, that's great, but it doesn't take that much time off my plate. So do it, don't do it, whatever, but it doesn't really move the needle in terms of your time. So we can either hire an estimator or a project manager. And we always say, hire the project manager first, because there's a chance, and you probably know this because it's probably not your first rodeo building a team. I know it's not easy to build a superstar team of people. It takes some failure to get to the point where you have that skill set. So there's a good chance, and even when you're good at it, you're going to mess things up. So there's a chance that when you hire this sales rep or this project manager, that you might fail, or they might fail. And if you hire the project manager first and they don't do a great job, you can jump in and save the day and take care of those customers. If you hire a sales rep or an estimator and they start taking over all your appointments and they don't perform well, your business goes to zero. And the whole goal of hiring people is to grow the business. So I'm going to do more revenue at a smaller margin, but more profit.
Yep.
And you just have a 30% chance that your business goes down if you do it with a sales rep first. So we say always production manager, then an estimator, and then you're kind of, for the next few hires, you're kind of playing. It's a little messy because it's never perfect. You need more leads to get to the reps, and then you have too much sales and not enough project managers, and then, or the other way around. So it's always this, like, nothing's ever even in growth mode. You're always overstaffed in one area and understaffed in another, and you're just kind of playing that game for like that next year or two as you're getting, some consistency into the business.
Yeah, and I think that's true for any industry. You're always going to be playing that game of chasing those margins, right? At least until you get to that point of multi 7 figures, when those margins really start to expand. So you talked about the vision, painting the picture for long-term growth, hiring the right team. What's next?
Well, I mean, once you've got your team, it's pretty, that's the game. I think the way that these numbers work out is you should have a sales rep do 1.2 to 1.8 million a year in sales. depending on job size and how efficiently you train sales and things like that. So if you've got 2 sales reps, 2 project managers, and an office manager, you should be doing $2.5, $3 million a year, maybe a little more. Your margins should be 20%. And that's that you've made it. I mean, that's for me, that's the first really big goal of this business. That's the like, I have fulfilled my goals of starting this business. Like I've got great income. I have a team. I have time freedom where I can work 20 hours a week. I can take a day off. I can take a 2-week vacation. And from there, I think there's a million directions you can go. And that, for me, that's a great point to like pause and say, I need to create a new future for this company, or I need to stop and start to see like what's next for the company and what's next for me. Because you've really created a launching pad to go in so many different directions at that point, which I think is amazing.
Yeah. And like many entrepreneurs, you have to stay busy. Like one thing is not going to be the one thing you're going to do forever. But you made that sound very easy. And I think there's a lot of roadblocks that come up there. And I know your coaching program probably helps you avoid a lot of those roadblocks and potholes. But I've known guys who have been stuck at 500K a year for 6 years, right? And they're struggling to even get to $1 million. And you painted that picture to make that seem like anybody can do it. Yeah. So my question is, on average, how long does it take from somebody to get from point A to point B in your program? And ultimately, what are some of the more common challenges that you see along the way?
So, man, the number one problem is that people don't actually follow coaching. We're just making that transition, man, to like extreme accountability within our program. So it's hard to say because we just haven't had extreme accountability. We haven't charged enough money for that. It costs a lot of time and effort to hold people accountable.
Yeah.
And, we do track people's adherence to the program. And we just went through this over members who are 3 months in and members who are 6 months in, and percentage of how many of them are sticking to like the most important things we trained them on and held their hand with the first 4 weeks. And almost nobody's sticking to it within 3 months and 6 months. So the number one challenge is that people just don't follow the coaching. And you don't get to extraordinary levels of performance if you don't follow your expert coach's advice, and that would be the case in any, you look at professional athletes who don't listen to their coach. They're not professional athletes if they don't listen to their coach. Right. So we're really working on that. But what we know is that the people who have really followed it and adhered to it, it's a range too, because people have different ambitions. Some people like to just kind of go slow and, take their time, and other people are really ambitious. So it's a broad range when you look at people who are actually following the process. But Brandon comes to mind, who's been around for 4 years, started as a painter, and he's doing over $3.5 million a year now. That was about 4 years. John was stuck around a few $100K a year for like 8 years and then joined the program. He's doing over $3 million a year 4 years later. So I think about 4 years, is probably a realistic time frame. Daniel's rocking. He's only 6 months in, but he did about 2 million last year. He's on track this year for 4 million now. And we've improved his net margin by about 20%, which is wild. So it varies person to person. And the thing that varies is the program's the same for everybody. But the biggest thing, at least that I can say right now, is just accountability to themselves. And I'm like, man, we beat it in. I'm like, I love these people. I want the best for them. I'm like so fucking passionate about it. Hope I can swear on this.
Absolutely.
But, I'm like really passionate about these guys and their success. And it's like, I got to fight for them. I just did that in a webinar the other day with our members. And so anyways, we're going to just make the changes and we're going to do a lot more accountability. And then once we're doing that, we'll start to find out what the new roadblocks are and the new challenges. But as far as I'm concerned, the number one is that people just aren't accountable.
So, okay. Discipline is the way that I describe that. And
yeah,
as a business owner, you have to have discipline. You have to be able to get up at the same time every day. You can't be partying late night on a work night when you need to do something important in the morning. You have to sacrifice, right? And I think a lot of people get that in their mind. They're like, you know what, if I get 6 months into this and I'm not seeing results in a seasonal industry that is seasonal throughout a 12-month calendar year, they drop off. And I think, you've nailed it, man. Professional athletes, they don't get to the pros on their own. They have somebody who has walked the walk, talk the talk to train them. And I don't know why people think differently in the world of business, because I have coaches. I think the best thing you can invest your time into and your energy and your money into is a coaching program, having somebody guide you through that path to avoid those roadblocks. It's crazy to me that that's not more recognized within the business world, right?
I'm with you, man. Yeah. Wild, wild, wild.
So, something I want to talk about though is the phases of a business. So within the painting world, I kind of see a few different phases, and those phases, in my opinion, I'd love to get yours, consist of a different mindset and different people and different processes along the way. I see one phase being from like 0 to about 500K, 500K to maybe 1.5, and then 1.5 and above. Once you get to that multi 7-figure mark, your processes, your people need to be dialed in, or else you're going to start to see some issues. What are your thoughts regarding that? And do you use a different metric to measure the different phases of a business?
No, I think that's the only one I would change is I would move the 1.5 to like 2.5, because the only difference between 1.5 and 2.5 is a little bit more, maybe another 10 estimates a week. So it's a little more marketing. And then it's just another project manager, and another sales rep. But that's where it's like, okay, I got a team of 5 now, but going from a team of 5 and beyond that, scaling marketing past like 3 million a year and starting to scale your team past 5 people, it's like nodes on a network. It's like every new person you add, it's like 5 new relationships. And then the next person, it's 6 new relationships. And so it gets way more complex with more people. And I think that's like a big ceiling that people start to hit, is like around 3 million or so, 4 million even. But otherwise, I'm with you, man. 0 to 500 is like, I just got to get a successful business here that's like making me 100K plus, and I'm not selling out my life to do it. And then it's getting those first couple team members. And now it's like, okay, now I'm not needed to do the day-to-day. And then it's a couple more team members. And then some of the real challenges start, and you start to decide, what future do I want here? Do I want to do the work to build this to 10 million, or do I want to go and do real estate, or do I want to just kick back and chill, or,
Yeah. So good. So let's talk about some financials, because I think a lot of guys mess this part up, and that is just that understanding the margins that you should have within your business. So within Painting Business Pros, what does your framework look like around the margins that you should have on the profit, the fulfillment side? What does all of that look like?
Be 45 to 50% for labor materials, which usually that's going to be to subcontractor who's purchasing materials, but it could also be to employees, and then you're purchasing materials, but that's 45 to 50% cost expense. And then marketing under 10%. As you know, a lot of that depends on the effectiveness of lead conversion and the sales rate, and how well people turn leads into paying customers. A lot of that is also impacted by a company's ability to generate referrals and repeat business. If I get twice as much repeat business and referrals as the next guy, like that allows me to either spend a lot more on marketing, or it drives my marketing numbers down. So we want under 10% on marketing. But we've seen a lot lower than that, depending on those other factors. Your sales reps, 6 to 7%, project manager, 6 to 7%. And then you've basically got overhead. And overhead, I have seen vary a lot. This is an issue I see with quite a few painting contractors that just spend a lot of money on overhead that I just don't think is necessary. Small companies that have a pretty big rent, where you don't need an office, or a lot of vehicle fleets. And I'm like, if you're spending tons of money on vehicle and fuel and all that, then your cost of goods, your labor materials should be down, because that would be assumed to be like almost in there if you're working with subcontractors, for example. So you got to be careful that overhead doesn't get bloated.
Yeah. So when we're looking at gross profit, does that vary between those who have a submodel versus W-2, or a mix of the two?
I think you can make more money probably with an employee model, but it's going to be, it takes more skill.
Yeah.
And there's also some downsides, because a lot of businesses are seasonal, and there's no getting around that. Like, there is more demand in August in Colorado than there is in December. Like, so you either need to turn work down in August because you don't have the staff, or you're going to have to staff up and then lay people off in December, or you're going to have to pay people for not working in December, because it fluctuates significantly for us. If we want to just meet the market where it is and meet the supply and demand, meet the demand where it is, we need to fluctuate the size of our workforce significantly throughout the year. And I just don't think it's reasonable to do that fully with employees. But to your question around margins, I think that it shouldn't. It's the same either way, because at the end of the day, we're paying labor, which is market rate, and we're paying materials, which is the same, because they're all getting the same discount through your account. So cost ends up being the same.
So you nailed on a point there that I want to really hammer on, and that is the seasonality of this industry. So we all understand that there's market conditions outside of anybody's control that is going to impact how often your phone rings. And I like to consider this business, this industry, like a luxury or premium home service. It's low barrier to entry. People can go grab a bucket of paint from Home Depot and slap paint on the walls. It's not like when your HVAC unit goes, or you have a leaky faucet, or your toilet won't flush, and you're going to call that plumber in the middle of the night. So it's a service that's very much impacted by holidays and end of quarters and tax season. So how do you recommend handling the seasonality of this industry? For us on the marketing side, it's all about being proactive. But do you have any strategies within Painting Business Pros that you like to preach to keep people either in the right mindset or financially secure throughout the year?
Both. And to what you just said, proactive, like how do you stage, pumping up more interior work and doing some extra promos to past customers, and even lowering rates and lowering prices this is supply and demand. This is not just standard economics. So all those things, do that for sure. But even if you do all of that, it is going to still be seasonal. Like
Right.
You're still not going to have the same business that you have in the busy months of the year. And so my advice is to embrace the seasonality. In my early days, I was taking month-long vacations, November and December, with my now wife, then girlfriend and fiance. And so we just took that time off. I enjoyed my time off, and I would plan, when I'm making my business plan for the year, my goals, I would just map out what's my goal for the year. Okay, I want to make 150K. So what's my revenue got to be? It's got to be this. And I'm mapping out all my items. And I say, okay, so I got to do, $500,000 in business from January to August, or January to September, or whatever my season is where I live. So map out your goals to just hit them in the 9 months. That's the biggest thing, right? And then enjoy the off season. And there's a lot of ways to enjoy it. You could not work, you could scale back. But also for us, it's an amazing time to work on our business. We do every year, like system wide, like everything that we can make better, we're making better these days. And we're investing a lot in learning, educating, planning for next year. That's highly valuable. And I think most people don't do enough planning and projecting their upcoming year, don't put enough thought into it. So just embrace it and enjoy it. And then I think where a lot of people might not feel they need to do that, because they're like, but I got to work for my guys and I got to keep them busy, which is partly why we like the subcontractor model, because they understand, they know it's seasonal, and we're going to do our best to get it. We're going to get them busy as fast as we can, but they also kind of know. And then you just got to start to get realistic a little bit, that you can care a lot about your guys, but if the work isn't there, it's not there. Yeah. And you need to come up with another solution that's not like, I'm going to just grind to get the hardest work to get all year for the lowest margins all year. It's like, put that time in when the getting's good, and your time is worth more. So, yeah.
I was talking to Tanner Mullen the other day, and he brought up the concept of doing work nearly at cost during the off season when it's slow, just to keep your guys busy, to keep them happy, knowing that, sure, you've already made your money throughout the year. There's no reason to try to be greedy and make an additional profit that's going to, bring in some more for Christmas gifts or something. Just about trying to keep the guys busy until we hit that prime season here, let's say late February, early March, which does bring up another question. What do you consider the time of the year to start throttling things up? I know it's going to be different for every market, depending on if you're in the North or the South, but in general, you have clients all over the United States. Is there an average to the seasonality of this space?
Well, it for sure picks up everywhere kind of organically in March, but I think you should start hammering it January 1, really. I mean, once it's just right after Christmas and holidays are over, just start hitting it, because there's certain customers who are going to want work then. And I mean, because you can just make this slow season as short as you can, but it's going to be there. So enjoy it when it is there. But yeah, I'd say start getting after it in January. That's what we do. We'll start spending and trying to get our sales team as busy as we can, as fast as we can. Because we want our people to make as much money as they can. And they're making money when they're selling projects. And our project managers are making money when they're producing projects. And our subcontractors and guys are making money when they're painting houses. So the busiest we can get them, we want to. But we're also just going to be realistic that we're even doing our best in November and December. But our best just isn't going to get everybody busy.
Yeah.
And we just accept that and enjoy it.
I am curious, what do you do this time of the year? So we're heading up into Thanksgiving, Black Friday, Christmas. Everybody's putting up Christmas trees and Christmas decorations. They might not want the interior of their house painted with all those decorations hanging up. It's cold outside. It's too cold to paint the exterior. What do you guys do that's maybe unique or different to help drum up some business this time of the year?
Dude, I'll be honest. I think that's one of the areas of our business that we're not very good. That's what's kind of funny is we might at the very beginning of the show, you're like, oh, Empire. And I'm like, dude, I just look at my business and I see how many places we suck still. We're just not that good, man. We're good, but I got so many things that we need to improve on. And I think marketing is one of them. I think our slow season is one of them. I think we need to get a lot. I mean, I think we're really good at it relative to most, but I think we need to get a lot better with our customer experience. And how seamless everything is from start to finish with every person they talk to. So there's just so many things we need to improve on. I think that's one of them. So I don't think I could come up with some bullshit, but I think that there's nothing we do that I think is really special this time.
I love the humbleness of that answer, considering how many successful businesses you've scaled, and yet you still identify that there's room for improvement. I think that's where a lot of guys fail, is they look at one process. They're like, yeah, that's as perfect as it's ever going to get. And then they walk away from it. And that starts to deteriorate. I think we all know that SOPs need eyes on them. We take eyes on our SOPs every single month because they become outdated, right? We don't live in a static world here. So it's important that we're always evolving and adapting. What do your SOP creations look like on your end? I know your coaching program, do you provide your clients with frameworks on that? Or do you actually hand them SOPs that they can take and implement today?
Yeah, the second. Yeah, it's I don't know.
I love it.
60 SOP playbooks that are it's implement it right now. It's not like here's the Mad Lib for you to figure out. It's the playbook that we use. It's script word for word stuff. And what I just finished redoing the whole program top to bottom. I filmed 50 videos this month to update it. And one of the last videos I just filmed was about the importance of just mastering what's in the course, because at our own companies, that's what we're mostly working on. I think, I think you should be building better systems. But even if I gave you or a painting contractor the best systems in the world who has a team, the biggest problem isn't the systems. It's the lack of adherence to the systems. And so, and including at our company, I mean, we've been working on that a long time. It's just the integrity of the implementation of the system, the reliability, the consistency of a growing team actually following the systems that are there. And that's what I see to the question you had earlier, what's the biggest challenge in people's way of scaling their companies? It's implementation. Yeah. I have yet to be stumped where someone comes to a webinar and says, Eric, I'm struggling with this, and I don't have the answer. And the answer is always already in the program. They just haven't mastered one of the things, or they missed it, or they, so when I mentioned John or Brandon earlier, those guys have gone through every video in the course a dozen times, according to them. And so I think, I can't remember where I went on this tangent from, but I think building SOPs is important, but also this is what I think, I'm highlighting it because I think people overlook it.
Yeah.
That one of the most important things is people undertrain their team because you forget how long it took you to master something. And so people just always undertrain people. And then once they are trained, they're cool, they're trained forever. It's no, you got to keep going back. They're trained when their performance is stellar consistently, and it takes a lot of work to do that. So So anyways, long tangent to, yeah, we have all the SOPs in the program. The way we build them at our company is we're just like always updating them. But then the heavier lifting isn't updating the playbooks. It's making sure everybody is now following the new playbooks and the changes.
Yeah. And so we've actually changed the way that we phrase delegation within our company, because I think it's important to understand that an SOP, there needs to be an owner of that SOP. So we actually call it ownership instead. You now own that process. You own that responsibility. That is yours to be accountable for. And having that word ownership behind it kind of shifts their mindset from, hey, I need to do this, to, hey, I need to own this. And I own the outcome too. And that mindset shift seems to help. But I am curious, out of all the different SOPs that you guys have, you have different playbooks for different, let's say, different frameworks of each part of the business, whether that be operations or sales, marketing. What do you think is the most difficult to implement across the board?
At our own companies or for people we coach?
Both.
To implement,
follow through. I guess even your company, I imagine you guys follow the same. You probably practice what you preach, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So let's start with your company.
It's not like the harder thing is not, it's the intangibles. So it's not quite the playbooks themselves. It's more the context or people's like integrity with this. I'll give you just an example. We have an SOP on like, this is how you handle a customer who calls you with a problem on the job. And the SOP is one thing, but one thing I'll tell a project manager or anyone I coach is if someone calls one time, you have to go above and beyond, like crazy above and beyond, because they'll give you one free pass, but they won't give you two, because we're in an industry with little trust. They're waiting for you to drop the ball. The moment you drop the ball, they now no longer trust you. You're just like every other contractor. But they'll give you one screw up if you come over the top and make it right. And so going above and beyond is subjective. So if I'm a project manager and customer calls a problem, I go above and beyond what I think is above and beyond. And then they're still upset. And I'm like, dude, you didn't go above and beyond enough. And so it's like figuring out these nuances. It's the paradoxes in business too that are hard to master. So you can put it in an SOP, like this is how you create a winning relationship with a subcontractor. But then there's when are there too many problems that I need to end it? Or how do I actually have that conversation to elevate the relationship while still holding someone accountable? So it's these like very nuanced things that you can't really put in an SOP easily.
Right.
That you really need to train someone on. Like, how do you hold a employee or subcontractor accountable without being a dick? Where it actually accrues their respect and trust in you even more, and you're holding them accountable. It's not easy to do. And I think it just takes practice. It takes a coach. It takes reminders. It's that kind of stuff that's really hard. Because we're in a people business and people are going to be people, and people are going to get frustrated about things and take it out on people. And it's like, that doesn't serve the business.
Yeah.
When you bring emotion into it.
Having the mindset of a leader, I think kind of all ties that together as well. Yeah. And as you mentioned, it's hard to put a number or KPI behind that because everybody operates different. Everybody's leadership style is a little different, but that's why we don't have managers at Base Coat Marketing. We have coaches. So our managers act as a coach for the rest of their team. They own all of their team's responsibilities as well. I mean, it's a top-down structure that works very well. But that does bring up another question, though, is how do you hire and find these people? Because at the end of the day, you're building a team. You need to build a team that is accountable and holds ownership. Do you have any secrets or hacks as to what you guys do to find the right people?
Yes. And another one of those things that I think we still aren't good enough at. I think we're really good at it, but I'm starting to see like, man, there's so much room to improve here too. We do most of our recruiting. If we can, we'll do it through networking, but I think networking is really, really valuable. I think that's what we want to do more of is find our superstars and ask them who else they know that are superstars. But you've got to have superstars to ask for referrals from. And I think for a long time, we didn't have a lot of superstars. in our company. I think only more recently we've started to have like a really amazing team of people that we would even want their referrals from, you know? So anyways, our recruiting process is I wrote a job posting. It's like copywritten basically. I mean, it sells the job and it speaks to exactly who we want. And it's Indeed literally told us, your job post is way too long. You should make it shorter. But my job posts on Indeed like smash normal results in terms of cost per applicant. And then we just have a really good way of how we screen them and narrow it down. So we'll typically hire one out of about 200 applicants.
Love that ratio.
So highly, highly selective. And one of the most important things that we're hiring for is culture and values fit. We're happy to train people's skills, but we want to make sure we've got the values things right. So we just we don't hire people if they miss on one little thing, it's like, all right, no hire. So we're really patient to make hires because we just put so much into training people because you have to.
Yeah.
And knowing how much we're going to put into them, we will just wait until we got the right person. And we still make mistakes sometimes, but we've gotten much better. Our attrition is getting closer and closer to zero, which is good.
Yeah. I mean, what I always like to say is hiring is guessing, firing is knowing. There's never 100% certainty in that process. I am curious though, what does your interview process look like? You know, when we're looking at weeding out 200 or 199 applicants out of 200, how do you get to that point? Because that can be very daunting if you don't have a good process in place. We're a very similar metric where out of every, let's say 100, 200 applicants, we'll maybe interview one. And then out of 5 applicants that we interview, we'll pick one. So it takes a while and you need to hire slow, fire fast. Yeah. But when you're hiring slow, again, how do you get to that top 1% effectively?
This is a plug, but it's really just for listeners. I have a 27-minute video on YouTube that goes through our whole 7-step hiring process with every screening step. We'll go into more depth than I will be able to here with the time we have.
Awesome.
But we basically have we have this really long job posting that's calls out exactly who we want and sells the job of what it's like to work with us. That, it's all well written. And then the very end says apply, and you have to submit a cover letter and resume to be considered. Please answer these 2 questions in your cover letter. And so then we get all these applications. And so the first pass, I just go through and I just delete everybody who didn't do the cover letter. That's easy. That's about 60 to 70% of people.
Yep.
And then I'm down to, let's say it was 100 applicants. Now I'm down to 30. And then I go through the 30 and I look at which are the really half-assed cover letters. And I delete all of those. What I'm really looking for in this step is, did this person read this post and be like, I want that job and I want it bad enough that I'm going to go and write I'm going to put an hour into a cover letter to apply. That's the person I'm looking for. So anyone who's not that person, I'm pretty much nixing. And usually that'll get me down to about 5 people where I'm like, these are 5 really well done cover letters. And then of those 5, after a day or 2, I look at them again and I'm like, really, it's these 2 though. And then those are the 2 I'll call. And sometimes I'll call the other 3 just to validate my assumption. And I'll talk to all 5 and it's like, yeah, those 3 were the worst. Those 2 were the best. And doing that enough times, I've learned to trust myself that I pretty much know. Just the other day, in September, I hired a salesperson for Painting Business Pro and got 385 applicants in 8 hours and narrowed it down. And from those applicants, I'm like, it's going to be one of these 3. And it was. And I brought 10 to the next step, but then it was one of the 3. And then it was one of those 3. So I think over time you kind of learn that, but that's the big chopping block. And then we do a phone call and then we do an interview and then we call their references and we have them talk to people on our team. And then we do a final interview.
Oh man, references. We overlooked that step early on in the early days as far as actually calling those people. And man, you need to call them because there is some skeletons in the closet out there if you don't. So what I will do, Eric, is I'm going to grab that link to that video and put it in the description on YouTube and on Facebook and this, so that way others can dive into that on their end. So I am curious, Eric, you've worked with thousands of painting business owners. So you've seen all spectrums of problems that they run into, whether that be operation, sales, hiring, marketing. If you had to scream something from the rooftop that you would love every single business owner to hear, something that they can implement today or tomorrow to help grow the success of their business and have more freedom, what would that be?
It's so hard, dude. That is so hard. I don't know if I would yell. If I could yell something, it wouldn't be. It's like that's the problem is people don't hear a lot of what you say. They hear what they
Yeah.
want to hear and all that. But if I could say something that people would actually hear, it would just be that you're capable of way more than you give yourself credit for. Like you have no idea what you're really capable of. I want people to know that so that they'd have the courage to swing for the fences more than I think they do. I think people just are scared to invest in themselves because I know you probably know this too. With like you've worked with tons of coaches and mentors and mastermind groups and all those things over the years. Some of them are a bust.
Yeah.
Like they totally are. Some I've spent probably over $100,000 on things that were worthless, but the money I've spent that on the things that weren't like changed my life, and I wouldn't be who I am and I wouldn't be where I am without them. And so I think if people just knew like I'm destined for great things, I'm capable of amazing things, I deserve it, I'm capable. I just need more. I just need the right coaches, support, peer network, etc. Like that's it. Like it's really simple, but I think you got to have that belief first, before you don't believe it's possible for you, you're not going to bother taking the action, And so I believe in people because I know how bad I was at pretty much everything that I've done initially. And I've been really fortunate to have opportunities with great coaches and mentors and programs. And I've just been really fortunate with opportunities. And some people will say, yeah, but you took them and you did a lot with them. And I absolutely did. I mean, I don't know anybody who has taken advantage of the opportunities as much as me. In my network of people I know, like I have done that, but I still had them and I still sucked. And that's why I want people to like believe and take action. Cause I'm very fortunate for the life I have. I think I have an amazing life. I love what I do. I love my family. I love my friends. I love the lifestyle I have. And I've been given everything. I took it, but I was given it all. And so anyways, I want people to believe in themselves. Like anyone can do amazing things. And for sure, whatever you think you're capable of more than that. For sure.
Amazing. Yeah. And I think really what it comes down to is having that person that can guide you through that path. And I can personally vouch for your program because we have several of our clients who have either been in that in the past or are in it today that have nothing but good things to say. So what I would like to do is open this up to you. Can you describe from a high level who best fits your program and how they might be able to reach out to you to discuss potentially jumping on board with Painting Business Pros in the future?
Sure. Although I don't like self-promotion a whole lot, I'll mention a couple things. So we've done work with a lot of people for a lot of years, and so we've kind of separated our program into we have basically 3 programs that we offer people. What we started to notice was that what I'm most passionate about is what we've talked about a lot on this podcast or stream or whatever we're calling this. Helping someone build a $1 to $5 million business with a team in place that runs your day to day so that you're making all the money you ever need and you've got the freedom of your time to do with it whatever you most want to do. That's what I care about most. But getting there takes something that most people aren't ready for. And so a lot of this industry is under $500,000 a year, most of it. And so we have an accelerator program that's designed just to get people an extra $5,000 a month in profit while working less than they are right now as fast as possible. So that's the first one. And it's like, we're going to give you the least things possible to make sure that you can achieve that goal. And we're putting the accountability stuff in place as we speak, because we know that's going to be the biggest missing piece. And then we have our mastery program, which is designed to be multiple years. It includes live events and it includes really in-depth leadership development, which is a lot of mindset stuff, a lot of the things we've talked about that are the intangibles. The program's really good. It's like, this is literally how you sell at a high rate. This is how you produce jobs efficiently and effectively. This is how all the systems and playbooks are there. But then there's this intangible part about how do you lead people? How do you listen? Like most people aren't very good listeners. Like we actually got to get coached on how to listen more effectively. So there's a lot of leadership development stuff we get into. I could just go on and on, but that mastery program is really for anyone who's over 400 or 500K a year with big ambitions, and will help you grow and scale super fast. But the right way. It's not about speed necessarily. It's about doing things the right way, very methodically. That will result in the fastest way. but sometimes it feels slow, as I know, because I've watched how you've built Base Coat. Very smart, very methodical, but like, I imagine you guys are doing really, really well, because you also have a really solid product to stand on. So that's mastery. And then separately, we have a commercial painting program that I partnered with Scott Lawler on a few years back, because I wanted to implement it in our own companies. And selfishly, I did not want to learn anything the hard way. So brought on Scott and paid him a bunch of money to build the whole commercial painting model out for our business. And then we just turned it into a program and include, calls with him and mastermind stuff and all the playbooks and things like that too. So those are kind of our 3 programs. And I think commercial is really for people who have a strong foundation already in the residential business and now want to start to add this. I think that's what makes sense for that program.
Awesome. And would you mind sharing any sort of rough pricing on what your program costs if somebody was maybe interested in jumping on board with you?
We'll cover it all on the calls. And I don't want to say it just because it's changing. We've changed a lot of theirs because we're in the process of building it out so much.
Yep.
And also because we're like seeing, man, we need to add a lot more accountability in this, because what we're most committed to is getting the results. And these results are amazing, but if it takes, so anyways, we're changing it up. So I just don't want to say something and then have people surprised if the price isn't what I said on this podcast.
No. And the one thing that I really appreciate about your coaching program is the fact that you're not over promising. So you always see these coaching programs out there, like guaranteed add, $35K a month in the first 90 days. Like, these aren't real world offers. And I think what you're offering is something that you can stand on and grow into long-term. You do not change your personality as a leader overnight. And I think that's really where a leadership program that is designed to take multiple years is not just to take your money. It's designed because it takes you time personally to change your mindset. It doesn't happen overnight, right?
Yep. Yeah, totally, man. I mean, I appreciate you saying that. And we just want to get people great results. And that's, I love what I do. We don't do this because we need to. We're doing good with our painting companies, but we do it because we love it. I love to coach. I love to train. I love to teach. I'm good at it. And we love seeing the results of our members. So
love it. Eric, I know you're a busy man. Thank you for being here today. If anybody's interested in hearing more about Eric, go to paintingbusinesspros.com. Eric, until next time, thanks again, brother.
Hey, real quick, Austin. Sorry to put it.
No.
Paintingbusinesspro.com, not an S on there. And then one of the best places that you guys can get stuff is just on YouTube. Like, I'm putting a ton of stuff out on YouTube. We'll start putting other social media places, but I try to put out a lot of really good free information and content. And then if you guys are really compelled to move faster, like, we'd love to talk with you. We've got an application process where we actually make sure that you're right for the program. So the person who screens everybody, she doesn't get paid on commission. She gets paid on people who are right for the program being set up, and she gets dinged if she sets up the wrong people, and loses money out of her bonus. So we're really here to make sure that we're putting the right people in the program to make sure we're getting your results. So if you're just curious, reach out, chat with us, and if we're not right for you, we've got other people we'll refer you to and recommend, because there's a lot of great people in the industry that we can refer you to.
Your sales process sounds very similar to ours. I think we turn away more business than we take on. So
we've been, it's more than we move forward.
Love it.
Yeah.
Eric, again, thank you for your time, brother. Talk to you soon.
Yeah. Thanks, Austin. Appreciate you.